Do you remember it? That feeling, sitting in the back seat of the family station wagon, just buzzing with excitement for an order of hot fries or a special burger. Before there were mile-long menus and delivery apps, a trip for fast food was an event. And in the 1970s, that was a golden age. It was a time of wild creativity. The chains weren't afraid to experiment, rolling out items that today we might think are a little strange. But back then, they were revolutionary. But just like the best hits on the radio, a lot of those incredible menu items came and went. Today, we're turning back the clock to rediscover the lost treasures of the 70s fast food world. 1. Long John Silver's Peg Legs. All right, first up on our culinary trip back in time, let's head to a place you might not expect for chicken. Long John Silver's. Yeah, when you hear that name, you think crispy battered fish and shrimp, right? But back in the late 70s, Long John Silver's decided to try and make a splash with poultry, and they introduced an item with a heck of a name, the peg legs. Picture this. You get that classic cardboard tray, and inside are these golden fried chicken drumsticks sitting next to a pile of fries. But the real magic, the part anyone who had it remembers, were the crunchies. They'd take all those extra little bits of golden, crispy batter from the fryer and just shower them all over everything. Every single bite had that extra satisfying crunch. It was a small detail that made a huge difference. And get this, the whole meal cost just $1.49. In the 1970s, that was one of the cheapest meals you could get. For that price, and with those amazing crunchies, it should have been a smash hit. But for whatever reason, it just didn't catch on. Maybe people just couldn't get their heads around going to the fish joint for chicken. Before long, the peg legs walked the plank, and Long John Silver's chicken options became just an afterthought. But for those of us who were there, we remember. Oh, we remember those crunchies.
2. Burger King Whaler. From a chicken dish at a fish place, let's move to a fish dish from the Burger King. You couldn't have grown up in that era without picking a side, McDonald's or Burger King. And while the Whopper was fighting the Big Mac, another battle was brewing in the deep fryer. McDonald's had their iconic Filet-O-Fish. Burger King's answer? A sandwich with a much bigger, bolder name, the Whaler. Now, let's be honest, the Whaler wasn't reinventing the wheel. It was exactly what you'd expect. A crispy fish fillet, creamy tartar sauce, a little bit of lettuce, all on a sesame seed bun. It was simple, straightforward, and you know what? It was good. The Whaler actually swam around as a regional favorite in the 60s before going nationwide in the mid-70s. It held its own for years, and for a while in the 80s, you could even get a spicy Cajun Whaler. But as the 90s rolled in, the tide turned against the Whaler. Its popularity faded, and eventually, the King reeled it in for good. Sure, Burger King has offered other fish sandwiches since then, but none of them had the charm of the original. There was just something about that name, the Whaler. It sounded like a sandwich that meant business.
3. Taco Bell Bell Beefer Burger. Okay, we've had chicken from a fish place, a fish sandwich from a burger joint, but what about a burger from Taco Bell? If there's one discontinued item that gets brought up again and again in the Fast Food Hall of Fame, it has to be this one. We're talking about the legendary, the cult classic, the Bell Beefer from Taco Bell. So what was it exactly? Imagine a sloppy Joe, but instead of that tangy barbecue beef, you got Taco Bell's signature seasoned ground beef topped with some cheese, onions, and lettuce, all piled onto a soft hamburger bun. It was actually one of the first items Taco Bell ever sold, originally called a chili burger. There was just one problem. There was no chili in it. It was taco meat. So, after a couple of name changes, they landed on the Bell Beefer, and a legend was born. Throughout the 70s and 80s, people were obsessed with this thing. It was all the flavor you love from a taco, but in the familiar, less messy form of a sandwich. Was it technically a burger? No. Did anyone care? Absolutely not. But like so many great things, its time came to an end in the 90s. Now, Taco Bell did bring it back for a hot second in 2012, just to tease us, but it vanished again, leaving its loyal fans heartbroken once more. Come on, Taco Bell. The people have been asking for decades. Just bring back the Bell Beefer.
4. McDonald's Onion Nuggets. That passion for the Bell Beefer is real. But speaking of fast food legends, what if I told you that the most iconic item from McDonald's had a forgotten ancestor? Everyone on the planet knows the Chicken McNugget. It's a global icon. But before the chicken came the onion. That's right, the original nugget at McDonald's wasn't chicken at all. In the mid-70s, they introduced onion nuggets. Think of them as a cousin to the onion ring, but in a bite-sized, deep-fried, poppable form. They were the brainchild of McDonald's executive chef at the time, who was looking for new ways to serve classic flavors. And for a few years, they were on the menu. But then the chairman of McDonald's had an idea. He suggested to the chef, "What if you tried this with chicken?" That one question changed fast food history. The Chicken McNugget was born, and it was an instant runaway success. Sadly, there was only room for one nugget on the menu. In a classic case of the new kid pushing out the old-timer, the onion nuggets were retired forever to make way for their poultry superstar. A tasty piece of history, sacrificed for one of the most famous fast food items of all time.
5. Arby's Arby-Q. Arby's has always owned the roast beef sandwich game. That's their thing. But even the king of roast beef likes to mix things up now and then. In 1977, they introduced a smoky, saucy twist on their classic that became an instant legend, the Arby-Q. The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. They took their signature thinly sliced roast beef, and instead of the usual horsey or Arby's sauce, they absolutely drenched it in a thick, tangy barbecue sauce. They served it up on a sesame seed bun with pickles and onions to cut through all that richness. It was the perfect blend of savory, smoky, and tangy. It was just a fantastic sandwich. The Arby-Q was a huge hit through the late 70s and all through the 80s. But for some reason, by the time the 90s came around, Arby's decided it was a bit old-fashioned and took it off the main menu. But here's the thing about the Arby-Q. It's a tease. It's never truly gone. It's popped back up as a limited-time special over and over again through the years, reminding us all of how good it was, only to snatch it away again. This on-again, off-again relationship is just cruel. So we're joining the chorus. Hey, Arby's, stop playing games with our hearts. Just put the Arby-Q back on the permanent menu. We're begging you.
If you're still watching and finding these details valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave the number 5 in the comments below, just to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you don't miss a thing. Your support is what allows us to keep creating helpful content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's get back to it. 6. Pizza Hut Fiesta Taco Pizza. Okay, a barbecue roast beef sandwich is one thing, but the 70s weren't afraid to get much, much weirder. What happens when you smash two different countries' fast food together? You get a legend. We're heading to the red roof of Pizza Hut. Back then, they looked at Italian pizza and Mexican tacos and asked the question nobody else dared to ask. Why not both? The result was one of the greatest fusion foods of all time, the Fiesta Taco Pizza. This wasn't just a pizza with some taco meat thrown on top. Oh no, they went all in.
The sauce was a layer of refried beans. On top of that went the seasoned beef and cheese, all baked to perfection. But the best part came after it was out of the oven. They'd top it with cool, crisp lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and a drizzle of salsa. That mix of the hot, milty cheese and beef with the cold, fresh toppings was absolutely incredible. There was nothing else like it. It launched late in the decade, in 1979, but it became an absolute icon of the 80s and even the 90s. And then, poof! Sometime in the early 2000s, it just vanished. No big announcement, no explanation. We refuse to believe it's gone for good. We like to think that Pizza Hut is just biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash that taco pizza goodness on the world once again.
7. McDonald's chopped beefsteak sandwich. A taco pizza is pretty out there, but even the most traditional fast food giant wasn't afraid to step out of its comfort zone in the 70s. Let's go back to the Golden Arches. Normally, when you think McDonald's, you think round burgers and fries. But for a little while, they tried to get into the steak sandwich game, and they gave us the chopped beefsteak sandwich. This thing was simple but effective. It was a long, chopped beef patty covered with onions and a steak sauce. But what made it special was the roll. It wasn't a bun, it was an oblong roll, kind of like the one they'd later use for the McRib. That unique shape alone made it stand out. But here's the kicker, the detail that makes this a true deep cut for 70s kids. Do you know what it was often served with? Those very same onion nuggets we were just talking about. Can you imagine that combo today? A chopped beefsteak sandwich with a side of onion nuggets? That is truly a meal lost to time. But, as was the fate of so many experimental items, McDonald's eventually decided it just didn't have the staying power. After its run, it was pulled from the menu, and unlike the McRib, it has never made a comeback. It remains a fond but distant memory, a time when McDonald's proved they could do more than just the classic burger and fries.
8. Burger King Yumbo. It's one thing for McDonald's to try a different kind of beef sandwich, but what happens when the king of burgers tries to sell something with no beef at all? Let's talk about the time Burger King went simple, maybe a little too simple. In 1971, in a world dominated by their flame-broiled burgers, Burger King decided to zig when everyone expected them to zag. They introduced a hot ham and cheese sandwich, and they gave it a fun, jumbo-sounding name, the Yumbo. The Yumbo was comfort food at its most basic, just warm, sliced ham and melted American cheese on a bun. When it first came out, it was served on this hearty pretzel-style roll, which was pretty unique. Later on, they switched it to their standard sesame seed bun. But the real beauty of the Yumbo wasn't just its simplicity, it was the price. It was only 79 cents, and Burger King was always running buy one, get one free deals on it. You could get 2 hot sandwiches for less than $1. It was the ultimate cheap eat. It was popular for a few years, but by the 80s, Burger King decided the Yumbo was taking up space that could be used for, well, burgers. So they axed it. But here's a crazy epilogue to the Yumbo story. While it's been gone from the US for decades, if you're ever on vacation in the Cayman Islands, you can still order one. That's right, the Yumbo made a comeback, but only on a tiny tropical island. Talk about a destination-worthy sandwich.
9. Burger Chef Big Chef. For this next one, we have to pour one out for a fallen giant. We're talking about a whole restaurant chain, Burger Chef. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know this name. Originating from Indiana, Burger Chef exploded across the country, peaking at over 1,000 locations. For many people, they were just as big as McDonald's. And their signature sandwich, their answer to the Big Mac, was the Big Chef. Now, let's be real. It was a classic double cheeseburger,
2 beef patties, cheese, lettuce. But the secret was the Big Chef sauce, a creamy, tangy sauce, kind of like tartar sauce, that gave it that unique signature flavor. Burger Chef was a powerhouse, but after a long, slow decline, the entire chain was eventually sold off to Hardee's. One by one, the restaurants disappeared, taking the Big Chef with them. But in a heartwarming move, Hardee's briefly brought back the Big Chef in 2007 to a few locations in Indiana, the chain's birthplace. It was a beautiful, nostalgic nod, a tribute to a restaurant so many people missed. It didn't last long, but for a moment, an entire generation got to taste their childhood again. The Big Chef wasn't just a burger, it was a memory of a place that's now gone forever. 10. Jack in the Box Frings. Picture it. You're at the counter, you've ordered your burger, and then comes the fateful question, fries or onion rings? It's a moment of pure stress. But in 1979, Jack in the Box looked at this problem and said, "Why are we making people choose?" And they came up with a solution that was brilliant in its simplicity. They gave us the frings. Yep, fries and rings. Frings. They literally just put both of them in the same bag and gave it a catchy name. Let's be clear, this wasn't some grand culinary invention. They just solved a problem with basic logistics. And you know what? For a few years, it worked. People loved the freedom, the variety, and every handful. It was the perfect side for the indecisive. But the peak didn't last. Eventually, frings disappeared, and the world went back to the old ways, either making the tough choice or just ordering both. It was a beautiful, simple idea that just faded away. And there you have it. From the bizarre Bell Beefer, to the lost Big Chef, to the simple genius of frings. The 70s were truly a golden age, a creative playground for fast food. These weren't just menu items. They were memories. The taste of a Saturday night after a movie, a treat after a Little League game. They were creative, sometimes weird, but always unforgettable. But this was just our list. We know we missed some. What's the one forgotten fast food item you wish would make a comeback? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to read your memories. Thanks for taking this trip down memory lane with us.